Well, hi everyone, and welcome back to the Ascension Playground. This is your friend Ursie, and today, back by popular demand, I'm here to talk about the second royal star of Persia that's up in the heavens, a star named Fomalhaut. Before I do that, though, I just wanted to share it's now December, late December of 2022, and we're just about ready to hit the solstice. For some of you who don't know what the solstice is, it's the time that marks winter. So let's see, at 4:48 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time in the Northern Hemisphere on 12/21/2022, we're going to hit the winter solstice. And then I was reading that there'll then mark 89 days of winter in the north. So I'm covering myself up because it's a little bit chilly. But let me just share and talk with you a little bit about the playground. I didn't intend to be sharing and teaching so much, but I've been inspired by some of your comments as we explore together some of this amazing new narrative. And the information and the research that I've done, please know that it is for inspiration purposes only. I want to be really careful today to honor whatever religious belief or background you may have. I honor that. You know, the multi-diverse religious beliefs are really what bring our humanity forward, how we choose to express or not. The reason I'm saying this is because Fomalhaut, the royal star of Persia that was marked out several thousands of years ago, carries with it a beautiful energy of Christ, of Jesus of Nazareth. This was the star that heralded his birth on earth. And so if you find that you're not Christian or you don't believe in God, that's okay. Let's just play this game of narrative and find out if any of this inspirational material applies to your life or not. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to do it a little bit differently today. Here we go. I got my little red pointer. So the four royal stars of heaven. The Persians really looked above and saw north, south, east, and west. These were the four beautiful stars that were basically guiding Earth, guiding us on our human experience here. Regulus, Fomalhaut, Antares, and Aldebaran. And if you look at the screen, you can see the beautiful stars I found images of on the web. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna get to the next slide. Get my space bar. There we go. Now, a little bit of background in case you didn't catch the recent Regulus fixed star little narrative that I gave. As we all learn how to read the stars in the heavens and understand how this energy might play in our personality, in our decision making, within the energy field perhaps that we came in with on a psychological level. Okay, so the historical background of the star. I placed that beautiful yin yang image because I wanted to talk to you about this idea of duality. When you read Lissa Royal Holt's book on the galactic heritage, the prism of Lyra, you find that this idea of duality is very specific to our incarnation in the third dimension on Earth. So we're looking up now. Let's learn about these four stars. The second one, Fomalhaut, yes. But here's the thing. If you happen to see that you have a royal star in your soul connections using Julia Balaz's galacticastrochart.com free online calculator, then let me just say, in reading some of Bernadette Brady's work, it really calls out much more of a challenging life. So there's going to be highs and lows. It's not going to be like a flatlined life, right? It's going to be rather dramatic, especially in the early years of the childhood. the adolescence, and even young adulthood. So here's the idea. Way back when, the name for God was Ahura Mazda. Now, later, when you start doing some research, they actually use that name for one of the four royal stars, and that will come later. But this story, it's the benevolent father, but he gave birth somehow by himself to two children, a good child and a not so good. Here we go with light and dark. And so the ancient belief is if you have a royal star connection, that great glory is promised to you. It's almost like, you know, some of those old fairy tales, like you can get the pot of gold if you can answer the riddle or if you can accomplish the Herculean tasks. In this case, with the royal stars, it means overcoming the nemesis, which can destroy. It's almost like if you are engaging with one of the royal stars, and I know some of you have all four in your natal chart, what that means is in all four corners of the kingdom, the heavens holding things together, there's going to be a lot more height for the highest highs. But we know if you climb to the top of the mountain, the higher the mountain, the greater the potential fall. And so some of the fun parts in living this life for you would be how to not fall off the mountain. Okay, let's see. Hit this one. I wanted to show you this little picture because if you are like me and you learn in terms of pictographs, the center image is all about ascension. It's aligning with our chakras. It's connecting with our galactic higher selves. But the four stars that are holding up this earthly heaven in the third dimension, Regulus with Leo the lion, Aldebaran with Taurus the bull, and Taurus with the scorpion, Scorpius. The star we're going to talk about today is this upside down fish with a red star in its mouth. I know some people think it's in the eye, but I've read mostly that it's the fish with the star, the red star in its mouth. So I wanted to share this image for how do we work with the stars as we all move towards the center point of transforming all energy towards ascension. How do we lighten up to ascend? And it's not necessarily a physical ascension so much as it is an inward ascension of lightening the load and some of this human trauma that we've been born into. Okay, let's see. Now, in this slide, I wanted to write out Wednesday, December 21st, 2022. You might be hearing this message on the 21st. Doesn't matter, either a couple days before or a couple days after, you're going to feel this winter solstice energy. And Fomalhaut is the star that brings in this beautiful light. Now, the image that I'm sharing with the compass, this comes from Julia Balaz's Star Seeds Teachable class. It's the online course that if you'd like to learn in Galactic Astrology 101 or the Practitioner's course, there's some really cool charts like this one. Okay, so let's see. Aldebaran brings in the vernal equinox, Regulus, the summer solstice, Antares, autumn and the equinox, but Fomalhaut, winter. Winter is coming. Winter is going to be, you know, on the calendar, December 21st. And oh my goodness, my friend Jimmy, I don't know, it was like 22 below in Fargo. I cannot even fathom that. Here, let me move myself over a little bit. Okay, so, and as you see with the compass, north is Regulus, east Aldebaran, south Fomalhaut, and west Antares. And you can see that there's an archangel for each of these beautiful royal stars. The archangels are likened to some of the stories of, don't want to scare anyone, but the apocalypse, the four horsemen. When you start reading about what Jamie's got going on with astrologyking.com. So it's just learning how we hold four corners, four primary archangels, 4 points on the calendar. And these stars were used as navigational points as well, for seafaring. Let's see now for the next one. Here we go. Here's a fun thing to share. Two fabulous books that I love, both by Bernadette Brady, Star and Planet Combinations, and Brady's Book of Fixed Stars. You can find both on Amazon. Anyway, I just wanted to give a shout out to Bernadette. I'm taking her star school. My friend Anne Marie and I were doing the star school for Bernadette to go deeper into the mythology and the story of some of these amazing points of light. Now, if you're listening to, let's see, Heather Ensworth, my goodness, don't you love Heather Ensworth, astrologer? She was talking about visual astrology. When I heard her say those words, I knew she had also been reading and working with Bernadette's work. Let me move myself here. So visual astrology. Bernadette works with the stars from a more of a, I'm here on earth and I'm looking up at heavens and I'm putting all the stars back into that natal moment. So she works beyond the ecliptic and much more of what's called Purans or Purans, which is looking at the cross of spirit and matter. But I don't want to trip up on too much information. Just want to give a call out to Bernadette. Visit her at astrologos.com if you're interested in learning more about her good work. All right, let's get to the real story. Fomalhaut. Don't you love that? I know one of my subscribers was commenting about that I'm saying it wrong, you know? So Fomalhaut, Fomalhau, you know, tomato, it's the same star. So here we go. I created this little image. We talked about earlier on a previous one, little video I did about Regulus. The nemesis for the king star is beware revenge. And you could be a wonderful king and leader, but the fall from grace is when you get embroiled or caught in the crosshairs of revenge. You'll meet your own demise as the king and all the good work if you are not aware of this particular nemesis. And I want to give a shout out to all the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. This is the idea that being prepared, knowing where the landmines are. It's not about, oh, you're moving into fear consciousness. It's not that at all. It's really appreciating and understanding about the idea of energy, positive and negative. So with Regulus, you know, beware the nemesis of revenge. Now, right below the lion is the upside down fish, the southernmost fish named Ostrinus piscis, the mother fish of the two little Pisces fish. So do not confuse Fomalhaut with Pisces. It's Piscis ostrinus, the southernmost fish. Anyway, I'm just going to let you know, in case you don't have a lot of time to listen, the nemesis for this beautiful star, if you have it in your soul connection, is hubris. And I was like, what the heck is hubris? Would someone explain that to me? Another word for hubris is thinking that you know everything. There's an arrogance. There's not listening. I know everything. But see, this is the idea of the false prophet or false messages. And for it to be false, there has to be a knowingness. You have to know that you're speaking the truth sometimes, and then you're kind of doing a little gray zone, not telling the whole truth at other times. So here we go. So that's the spoiler alert. That's the nemesis for Fomalhaut. So let's go a little bit deeper, though. I'm going to open this up. Piscis ostrinus at 3 degrees Pisces, the southern fish. If you look at the colorful blue sky with images, what that old painting is talking about is we've got the cupbearer that is pouring out the water. That's the Aquarian symbol. So you've got Aquarius with the water from Aquarius's jar flowing right into the beautiful mouth of this mother fish. It's going right in. And you can see Capricorn, the sea goat, next to Aquarius, and that works on the zodiacal wheel. But there is this connection as we're moving from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius. The connection point seems to be the mother fish with Fomalhaut in the mouth. And I'm going to give a shout out again to Astrology King. Jamie's done some research, and he says that of the 4 royal stars, the celebration of Regulus as the king star is now giving way more and more to the star of Fomalhaut. And so I can kind of see that there's this movement of energy, right? So what does this mean? To learn the stories of these 4 stars, if you consider the archangel, in this case, it's Gabriel. Gabriel, as many of you may remember, was the angel that let Mary know that she was with child. Gabriel's also the archangel that announced to the shepherds in particular that the Christ child was born. So, it's this idea of divine messages speaking from the mouth. So again, see that fish with the mouth and this mother fish, meaning the feminine. What is the message of the mother that wants to come forward? Again, the negative side would be watch out for false messages that don't tell the whole story. And I didn't know this, but the word Gabriel or Gabriel means strong man of God. Isn't that beautiful? Just love that. Okay, so because I love pictures, here we go. I'm going to move myself again around. Here is Piscis austrinus. It's an upside down old-fashioned fish right here. This is the Urania's mirror image of Aquarius. Here's his holding the water for the collective. Here we go. Here it is. The water's going right into the mouth of the mother fish. I had to insert a fish upside down. There you go. So think of this as receiving. It's the feminine receptive. When I was a kid, I'd love fairy tales. And there was always this one story that's universal around the globe. And that is the fish that swallowed the gem or the diamond. And if you find the fish and catch it and you eat of its flesh, that some magic would happen. So that ancient tale of the fish with something in its mouth, it's right up in the heavens as well. Now, for those of you who like science and want to see a picture of the actual star, here is Fomalhaut. It's gorgeous. It's holding, again, Gabriel, Archangel Gabriel, watcher of the south, as an energetic. 3 degrees of Pisces, 53 minutes in the year 2000. So I just love the picture of the star. Now I created this slide because, gosh, I just kept learning more and more, and I had to finally tell myself, stop, go have some fun and share this. So I put the beautiful yin-yang symbol in the middle because each of the 4 stars needs to come into balance with itself, the high side and the potential low side. So for the Royal Star Fomalhaut, I read that it's also called the Royal Star of Man. Doesn't that make sense with this whole idea of the Christ, of Jesus of Nazareth, that energy around this star that was in the heavens at the birth? So it just makes me feel like the Royal Star of Man, the divine incarnate, mankind. And there's something called Chaldean numerology. So I'm just shouting out into the subscriber audience that if you like Chaldean numerology, this royal star is number 51. It carries the vibration of the 5, right? And the 1. 5 I always associate with change and the feminine, and 1, the beginning, right? Interesting. The beginning. Jesus perhaps as the divine balance of male and female. Okay, and here's a nice other little slide that I did. I kept the same yin-yang in the middle, but I'm calling out these higher metaphors for each of the 4 stars. So you're going to get a little bit of what's the whole picture look like. You've got the king star. I look at Aldebaran as the protector. That's got Archangel Michael energy. Here's Aldebaran, the eye of the bull, the mouth of the fish, the mother fish, the divine messenger. Then we move over here to Antares, the heart of the scorpion. That stinger is the visionary. So we've got the king with leadership, the protector, the divine messenger, and a visionary for the future. It's kind of cool how some of this works. Now, I also wanted to share a little bit more information about how to hold Fomalhaut. Okay, so with Julia Balaz and so much of what she's sharing with us publicly and privately, see if this weighs in with you. That if you do have the soul connection that's reading in your chart, many times people whom Julia has met, and I'm meeting too, have a strong affinity with Jesus. In fact, many have had and remembered lives as being an Essene or a follower of the Christ. So broadly, if this was not on your radar screen, you could look and hold it as the Christ consciousness or the highest qualities that Christ came and embodied here on earth. So there we are. There's beautiful Archangel Gabriel carrying the lily of peace. Here's a little sign of in the skies. What does Piscis Austrinus? It does look like a big mother fish shape, doesn't it? And again, it's sitting right there at the mouth, not the eye, the mouth of the fish. So I just love that. So what does it mean when we start talking about your own personal chart? What does it mean to have Fomalhaut in your chart? You have to look at the sign. What sign is it in? That means the zodiacal sign, Aries, Pisces, etc. And what house? Now the house will be more interesting because that will show where this star will play itself out. Let's, as an example, Fomalhaut at the midheaven. What does that mean? For me, anything, especially at those 4 angles, the top of your chart, the midheaven, is where you can bring something out into the world for the benefit of all. So a royal star Fomalhaut conjoined your midheaven would be, wow, what divine messages will you share with the public? And if you have a square and it's at your midheaven, you could be saying, well, what message are you holding back that might benefit the greater good? And then when you start learning how to balance the energy of, working toward transmuting some of those squares, those karmic lessons, that you'll find yourself to be lighter. Okay, I know I'm going very light on this idea of where is it in your chart, but these are the details you can learn in the Galactic Astrology 101 online class or the Practitioner's course. Okay, this is like a little taste test. Then I went back to good old Bernadette Brady, and she said if you do have this star in your chart, put myself down here, that you may have charisma or a touch of the mystic or a sense of magic. This is what the benefit of the star, if you allow the star to emanate in your life and you see that it's there, that you could even become the embodiment of Fomalhaut. And I had to put at the top of this slide, do you see how they sounded out? Fomalhaut, Fomalhaut, the fish's mouth. All right. Also, these words, creative inspiration, artists, writers, thinkers, strategists, this idea of creative inspiration is not just for what we think of in terms of art. It could be around aesthetics as well. So Fomalhaut, according to Bernadette, people have the strength to overcome their difficulties and they can become teachers of succeeding generations. So that's really the call. The call is if you decide to let your royal star Fomalhaut shine forth in this world, in this moment, you'll be helping the future. It's kind of like wow, if I don't say it, what will happen? I don't think there's punishment. It's just you get rewarded if you do move towards that which you're being called and led toward. Okay. And then I found this beautiful old image, um, probably Byzantine era, of the Christ with the fishermen, you know, being a fisher of men. And I put this image in because we see that when Jesus was born, it was like the mark of the age of Pisces, but it carried that energy of victim, martyr, um, savior complex. So, looking at energy, I wanted to get to the next slide, which brought me to back to this yin yang symbol, right? And so I was starting to look up the Hermetic principles because I was like, I'm sure there's going to be something specific to Fomalhaut around the 7 Hermetic principles. And here's what I read: everything is dual, duality, we're living in it. Everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites, right? Go back to when I first started this conversation around Ahura Mazda birthing 2 children, right? In Genesis, it talks about Cain and Abel. Even in Genesis, Lilith and Eve, right? So it's this idea of the good and the bad, or the positive and the negative, if we want to talk just in terms of energy. All manifested things have 2 sides, 2 aspects, or 2 poles. That's really interesting. I don't think I've ever even known that. Then, of course, most of us are familiar with this guy, Sir Isaac Newton, his 3rd law of action and reaction. Okay, this is science light, excuse me, art major here. But whenever one object exerts a force on a second object, like bam, there's going to be an equal and opposite reaction. And so that's basically all I wanted to say here. So in this playing out of duality, action, reaction. Royal star height, potential fall deep. If you didn't have a royal star, if you're just on top of a roof and it's a, 1-story hut, then it's like, okay, not too far to fall. I could probably survive that. But you royal star people, you guys are probably way high with the potential for magnifying some incredible messages, etc., to the masses for generations to come. Kind of a tall order, right? So then I had to go ahead and put this image in, back with my yin yang, and bringing in that time when Christ was tempted on top of the mountain. Okay, you see the dark angel and Christ. So here's when I was remembering what Lisa Royal Holt wrote about Orion. There is the Christ light. This is the service to others, embodying the law of one. We're all from source. We are all fractals of the one. And then this idea of the savior, and the resistance to the empire. So we put the Christ light on team A. Team B is we've got the equal and opposite to the Christ light, which is the imposter Christ. I was growing up, they were talking about the Antichrist. Isn't that interesting, right? Like Christ, Antichrist. So the imposter is more about service to self. It's typically the perpetrator or the victimizer. But guess what? There's a third party involved. The third party here are the masses, the people or the beings. So here we're learning that when you start looking at the star stories, especially Orion constellation, there's a multi-galactic lesson that's happened throughout other various galactic heritages and did not just show up on Earth out of nowhere. It's kind of like we all have to learn it at some point. So the question is, how do you work with a polarized society? That's the big question today, right? How do we work together as a team with such a polarized society? And how do we learn how to transmute this energy so we don't have team A and team B, but how do we work and appreciate the light and the dark, bringing in the fullness of creation with destruction, and destruction as a quality of being temporal, right? So I'm back to the slide that I started with. We've got Fomalhaut, the mother fish, southernmost, upside down, drinking the water of Aquarius, holding this energy of beware any false messages, hubris, arrogance, thinking you're all that, thinking that you have all the answers. Here, let me stop sharing here. There we go. It's not with judgment. It's more about just beware, cautionary tale around, do I show up like that? Do people think that I think I know everything? I certainly don't. So what part do I own? And the more you learn about the star stories, it's almost like the message for me is go within, go within, go within. Work out the inner imbalances first. Because if you work with and learn from like Deepak Chopra or some of these other wonderful teachers that we have in 2022, so much of this idea of the mirror, people that are coming to us, like that annoying one, or the difficult one, or the angry one, or the mean one, it's all a mirror for us to try and understand how is it resonating within myself. So I'm going to hold this idea that we have Regulus and Fomalhaut now, two beautiful royal stars helping to hold up the heavens, with Raphael, the green healing light and leadership. And then here comes Fomalhaut, the Christ light, understanding that this idea of duality and polarity is not new to Earth. In fact, I almost forgot to tell you, when you read some of Lisa Royal Holt's books, she talks about this idea that even in Orion, when it got really, really dark, so remember this equal and opposite reaction? When it got so dark, there was an entity like an Orion Christ. Imagine that. We always get hooked on, well, Jesus, and then Jesus Christ, and our Jesus. There's probably like, excuse me, but 1,000 different Jesuses running around in our minds around the world. But imagine this idea that the Christ, an energy, a being of such love and compassion, actually, when it was time, went into Orion, the darkest dark. It's phenomenal. And so when you learn these stories, you realize, oh, we didn't just create everything here. We're kind of like a petri dish of things that have happened all around in other constellations and stars. And if it didn't happen here only, and others have solved the problem or the issue or learned how to transmute the energy, wouldn't it be kind of interesting to learn from our great, great, great grandparents on other stars? That's how I'm kind of rolling these days, of when I find out what that date to meditate with the star is. That's when I can actually call their name in, calling in Fomalhaut. In fact, let me see. I'm going to grab my chart. Let's see, here's my handy dandy chart. I have one of these charts that I got from Julia. Such a good teacher. Let's see, February 22nd. So it's around the corner. Our sun in the northern hemisphere will be conjunct Fomalhaut. So a day before, the day of, February 22nd, and day after, that is the strongest portal of light. And then Fomalhaut will go into the South Pole in the southern hemisphere on August 27th, completely opposite Fomalhaut. So August 27th and February 22nd are the two fun days. I would recommend, especially if you have found this particular star in your natal chart, to tune into this energy. This idea that when the collective is calling out for change, for assistance, for focused, we're ready, we're ready. It's almost like that equal and opposite other comes in. So if things are really, really, really feeling dark for you, just know that that equal and opposite light is available. You have to invite it in. At least that's what I found. So if it's really, really dark, just know you've got probably a marker for one who has the potential for really, really high as well. I offer this to you for inspiration, for amusement, for fellowship, Thank you for being here with me. I know we're getting to the final days of 2022. It's been pretty exciting. I'll come back soon and share the last two royal stars because I see them as pairs, Antares and Aldebaran. And so we'll complete the year by having fun with those two remaining royal stars of the heavens. Take care, everybody, and see you next time on the Ascension Playground. Bye from your friend Ursie.